Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, an associate, a relative, a colleague, an enemy, any and all in between. Appreciated. Thank you to everyone who joined me on the live stream yesterday. It was a bit impromptu, wasn't something that I had planned, so the fact I had so many people sort of come through, leave comments and just enjoy the content, very appreciated. Again, super chats. Jack Knight became a member of the channel, thank you very much for that. And my Australian companion, whose name is slipping my mind right now, forgive me for that, but yeah, I know there was one of my Australian watchers who left a couple of super chats as well, but yeah, thank you very much for that. I'm going to keep this one real brief, short today. There was obviously the Queensbury card that took place on Friday. I haven't seen it, and unfortunately my my Skybox didn't actually record it, so I've got no way of kind of seeing it, but I did see, I guess, the highlights of the majority of the stoppages. I don't really want to talk about any of the fights on there purely because they, you know, most of them were very much A-side heavy sort of building fights, but there was wins for Royston Barney Smith, Moses Atalma, Willie Hutchinson, on the route, I guess, to sort of their next step. Fight was at York Hall, so it was normally those are good little event cards for them, especially more of late. They do seem to you know, fill up a good capacity and have a good energy and feel within them. So yeah, shout out to everyone on there. Obviously there was a massive upset by Ashley Lane over, who is it, Ethan Burke, who I think was 13-1 at the time, and Lane was like 18-10-2. So I guess, you know, you wouldn't think that that would be a acid test or whatnot, but it proved to be 6th round KO. You know, things happen. I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it looked like, if Lane was just better, if he caught him one time and Burke couldn't recover. I'm not sure. But yeah, so it goes. I guess it's back to the drawing board for Burke, and we'll just see what kind of happens with that one moving forward. Yeah, so outside of that now, obviously we had the Matchroom card, which took place last night in Sheffield, headlined by Dalton Smith and Jose Zepeda. So if we just talk about the main sort of the main card for that, Nico Livias against Peter Mergo, I think his name was. Now I didn't see the first 2 or 3 rounds of that fight, but I saw the rest of it, and the fight was highly entertaining from what I was looking at. It was a bit back and forth. You know, it wasn't one-sided traffic, and if you look at obviously the damage that took place to both guys at the end of that, Nico Livias is probably going to need some plastic surgery on his right eye. He took a bit of a beating in there. It was sort of swollen, cut a little bit as well, but he did manage to get a stoppage, and I believe it's his first stoppage that was his 8th fight, I think. He was 5-1-1, I think, before that, and I think he was 5-1-1. No, he was 5-0-1. Sorry, yeah. So that was his 7th fight, first stoppage in 7 fights. I went for the points decision on my predictions league. I figured it would go points. Neither guy were particularly big punchers, but he did one better. Got the KO in the 9th round. Congrats to him. Now, funnily enough, in my the next one was Jimmy Joe Flint against Campbell Hatton, and in my predictions league, I don't know, I think just because I had to fill it in early, I actually went with Campbell Hatton to win, and I went by late sort of round stoppages, like sort of like round 9. But when I actually went to my predictions within the Boxing News app, and when I was thinking about it more to do a prediction for it, even I hadn't seen a lot of Jimmy Joe, but I'd seen a lot of the build up, and I thought, okay, no, this is actually going to be a task, and I actually changed my pick, and I changed my pick to Flint by late rounds KO. I didn't put it in the basis picks video because I didn't know enough about either guy, but that's what I kind of put on my predictions on my Boxing News app. So shout out to Rob Tebbett and the team for that. And yeah, he didn't quite get a stoppage, but I mean, if Flint could have, if he had more of a crack on him, I definitely think he would have got one, because Campbell Hatton was open for uppercuts all night. That's, you know, sort of the straight right down the pipe as well was getting caught. I only thought that, to be honest, I only thought Campbell would, if he was going to win, it would either be some mad attritional thing, which you, in the first couple of rounds, you saw that's what he was trying, and maybe just wear out his opponent and then get a stoppage that way, or maybe some janky scorecards, as we've seen with him in the past. But this one, no, it was the scorecards themselves were very clean, except for the one that was 97-95. So I can't remember which which judge it was that gave that scorecard, but clearly, basically, so what he's saying is there was about 4 different 10-10 rounds in the fight. I definitely don't agree with that. Flint was the, you know, pretty clear and conclusive victor. Look, Campbell Hatton, the two things I will give him, he's got heart, and he's got work rate. He will work for every second of every round as much as he can, but he's very messy, doesn't know how to keep distance, doesn't know how to create separation correctly, doesn't move his head. His jab and his backhand are very, very lazy, and every time he throws a punch out, he lowers the hand that should be guarding his face. And there were several times he was getting countered over the top, or he was getting caught with shots because he's trying to load up on one shot and counter it and being countered. And there was a time, I think it was in the 7th or the 8th round, where he tried to telegraph this massive, I think it was a right hook. He tried to telegraph it and he dropped his hand and he twisted his body to turn into the shot, and ended up getting caught with a counter right hand over the top by Flint. He literally telegraphed the shot for like 2.5 seconds before throwing it, or something along those lines. And you can't be doing that at any level, let alone sort of like, you know, the world level, which I'm assuming is where they wanted him to go to. Now look, I've always said he's like trash. I don't want to see him on my screens or whatnot. However, I'm going to soften my stance a little bit, purely because when I was saying that, Matchroom were working on Sky and they were having him in the, like, he was at chief support, or maybe, you know, two from top of the card, and basically in these prime time slots getting, you know, having these awful looking fights just because obviously his name was Hatton, whereas there were better and more capable fighters who were fighting under him on cards. I remember there was one time, I think Craig Richards was like the show opener, or the second from bottom fight on the card, and then Campbell Hatton was, I think, chief support, or was the showcase fight, and the fight was awful. And that was kind of what initially got my mind set on, yeah, I don't really like this guy, especially looking the way he's looking. I could understand you doing that with someone like Ben Whittaker, even you know, yeah, others, you know, there's other people I could maybe see that with, Lauren Price, etc., Caroline Dubois, if you're showcasing, but he just wasn't that. And I just feel like because of the name, obviously, yeah, that brought a lot of pressure onto him, fair enough, but he was getting unfair advantages over people that were probably grafting just as hard, or probably selling just as many, if not more, tickets than him, but just because he had the name value, they was trying to exploit that. So yeah, I was like, I don't want to see him on my screens until he's like sort of 10-15 fights from now, and we see where he is and see where he gets to. We've seen where his level is. That's not to say he can't go past that, but I said yesterday on the stream, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't go above English level. I think that's his ceiling, personally, unless he wants to, you know, be a 50-60 fight pro and then just about getting to British after that. I don't see him getting any further than English. At absolute best, maybe a weak British division, but he's not going beyond that. But that being said, the fight yesterday was entertaining. I will give him that. So if that's his level, cool. You keep him sort of thereabouts on the card, the show opener, the second from bottom. in those areas, or if it's like a very sort of a thin card on the ground or a next gen card, okay, maybe you put him chief support, or you put him third from top or something. I got no problem with that. But him on like the big cards, no, that's where I don't want to see him. Especially for the level of talent that we're sort of talking about. But yeah, there was that one. So Flint got the decision, very, very clean, no problems with that. Next, we had, who was there? Then it was Ishmael Davis against Troy Williamson. Now, if you watch the breakdown, I mean, the basis picks, sorry, breakdown comes on Tuesday. You guys would have seen, I called this fight exactly to a T. I said that Ishmael Davis would be sharp in the first sort of 4 to 5 rounds, would be dominating, winning those rounds clearly, and you would see Troy Williamson potentially taking a little bit of damage, maybe even looking a bit unsteady on his feet while he's kind of getting used to the punches. But then come sort of round 5 onwards, like he's then going to start to stick it on Ishmael Davis, no diddy, and at that point we're going to start to see Ishmael have to sort of come through some difficult moments, especially when his gas tank's starting to run low, because he's not used to fighting at a 12-round pace. He's never gone above 8 rounds before. But he would then start to maybe get a second wind around about sort of rounds 9 to 10 to be able to close out the fight strong and win either of sort of like a 115, 113, 116, 112 type fight. That's exactly how I called it, and that's exactly how it happened, except for one of the judges gave it 117, 111 to him, so 9 rounds to 3, which I disagree with. Troy Williamson definitely got 4 rounds minimum. 5 rounds, I reckon possibly there is an argument you could say he maybe even did enough to get a draw. Some people on my watch along said that they actually had Troy Williamson up in the fight. I disagreed, but I can maybe understand where they were coming from. But he could have, there was an argument to be made, he could have got 6 rounds. So for him to only be given consideration for 3 on one of the judges' scorecards, I thought was a bit bad. But the other 2 were totally fine with me because I called the fight as it was going to be. Then we had Sandy Ryan versus Terri Harper. Now, if you guys again saw basis picks, I was umming and ahhing about whether the KO was going to happen. I felt that Terri Harper would look to move a lot more, that she would like use her quickness and her speed to sort of make Sandy have to trail and you know, sort of look for her. And if that was the case, you know, sometimes if Sandy, when she does sort of steam forward in pressure fighter mode, she can get caught and potentially she could lose rounds off of being sort of countered on the front foot. But Terri Harper chose not to do that. That's why I went with the points decision. But I was contemplating, I was saying there's a chance that she could get the knockout, but I'm just going to be conservative with the pick. Terri Harper decided to play right into Sandy Ryan's hands. She barely moved in the entire fight. She stood right in front of Sandy, you know, allowed Sandy, who was the naturally bigger and stronger woman of the two, to just bully her. Every time that Sandy threw a punch, Terri Harper's entire body just moved from left to right, back to front, front to back. There was no, you know, she just had no control over those just heavy thudding shots. The first round was even-ish, but Sandy Ryan won it. But then from the second round onwards, it's like Terri Harper was just target practice, and she just had the high guard, but she wasn't moving. She was trying to throw some stuff. She was obviously, you know, trading in spots to stop the referee from jumping in, but there was a couple of times he was looking like he wanted to. Second round, just a beating, body head. Third round, same thing. Sandy Ryan was she was on seek and destroy missions, and you know, Sandy's a very good fighter, but Terri Harper made her look like 3 levels above, I reckon, where she actually is as a boxer. And I'm not saying that like, oh, she's bad. She's not. Like, Sandy Ryan's a very, very good fighter. She's definitely world class. But Terri Harper had her looking like she was super elite, even when Sandy was maybe rushing some of the shots and trying to rush some of the work, just maybe getting a bit excited with the success that she was having. But yeah, I mean, look, Sandy, I guess, showed that outside of just being bigger and stronger naturally than Terri Harper, she is maybe a level or 2 levels above, and her amateur pedigree truly showed in that fashion. So After the fourth round, as soon as the fourth round was over, Steffi Ball just one motion to referee, said, yeah, it's done, don't worry, call it off. Congrats to Terri though, like she didn't say that she wanted to get pulled out. It was the team's choice to do it. They made the total right decision. I was on the live stream in that fourth round saying, no, Steffi, throw in the towel, just throw it in. There's no reason for her to take more punishment like this. Like, she's not going to be able to turn it around at this point. And clearly he I guess he wanted her to see out the round on her feet, and maybe gives her a bit more of a confidence, that I came through the crisis and I saw it out, and then the team decided to stop it in the corner before the next round. Maybe mentally that's a better or more of a victory for her. But I'm looking forward to see where Sandy goes next after that. Obviously, we all know that she was robbed in the Jessica McCaskill fight, the fight before that, and now it's almost like she decided to come for vengeance on Terri Harper. But Terri still got a belt at 154, but after the beating that she took there, I think she's going to have to vacate that belt and move back down. I said on the stream she needs to be at 135 or maybe 140 as an absolute max. She can't fight the people above that. She's just not big enough. The Cecilia Breakhouse fight displayed that last year, and this fight just put the exclamation mark on it, and that wasn't even at the same weight. And if Cecilia was a few years younger than she actually is now, she probably would have stopped Terri as well, just based on how that fight played out. So yeah, unfortunate, but that's how it works. And then finally we get to sort of the main event. We had Dalton Smith against Jose Zepeda. Now, I predicted this fight would go points. I was saying that I thought maybe there could be a late stoppage by Dalton Smith, possibly even Zepeda, but I expected Smith on points, fairly sort of comfortable, but maybe would have to come through a bit of a crisis, sort of like somewhere in the second half of the fight. Well, no, it didn't play out that way. Now, to be fair, Jose Zepeda won the first two rounds quite well. He was, he landed the heavier body shots. He was attacking to the body. He was finding a home. He wasn't finding a flush home for the backhand, but he was sort of connecting from time to time. Dalton Smith was doing very well by keeping his right hand like tucked to his chin at all times. There's a few times where Jose Zepeda went to sweep the hook and the arm was there and it would hit the arm instead of obviously the chin. But Dalton Smith in those first couple of rounds, if you look at his face, I'm not going to say he looked scared, but he definitely looked nervous and concerned, like, okay, this is, maybe I felt the power, this is a problem. And when sort of that was taking place, you say, okay, is he going to be able to sort of get it back? Because those first two rounds, he was very tentative. He did obviously throw a few shots. He started to find a home for the 2-1, throw in the backhand first, and then leading off with the counter, with the sort of the counter jab straight after that, and he was having success with that, and he started to employ that a lot more from sort of the third round, and then sort of that rounds 3 and 4, you pretty much saw him just taking. He started to take over and take control of the fight, and Zepeda then at this point started reaching with a lot of his shots and shooting them from way too far out, which was obviously not the way to go in that scenario. But lo and behold, in the fifth round, now I remember when I was watching initially, I saw the body shot go in, and it looked, from just the way the angle and the way sort of like my eyes saw it, it looked to me, I was like, oh, did that look a bit low? Because the way it throws Zepeda, I was like, oh, is he complaining that it was low because the way he was hunched over? No, that body shot was crippling, and when you see it in the slow motion, and you see, the way it hits the breadbasket or the solar plexus, actually it's just below the solar plexus. Solar plexus is up here, like it kind of hit just underneath that, but it was right in the pit of the stomach, and he was probably breathing in as that punch took place, and as soon as it landed, he was frozen. And he realized, I can't try and stay in this position, because Dalton was coming in for another shot. He went down and just avoided the left hook that was on its way in, which is lucky for him. But he was in agony on the floor, writhing in pain, and you could probably see he was also thinking to himself, I can't believe this has happened to me. I'm not it anymore. This is the end. he was probably on the ground just thinking that, because the way he was down, it's not even like he was holding his stomach. He was just like, yeah, this is really the end of my career. Like, this is crazy. But it was a brilliant shot, and Dalton Smith announces himself on the world stage. I won't think he's ready for world titles yet. I still think he needs another sort of maybe 2 or 3 fights before he's ready to take on the top of the division. But to mix it around the legit top 10 guys, I think that's there. I know that Regis Prograis put out a text that he'd love to face Dalton Smith next. That is a very dangerous fight for Dalton Smith. I don't know if he should take that one, because I don't think he's knocking out Regis the way he did Zepeda, and Regis is a lot more crafty as well. But if that fight did happen next, yes, I'm all for it. I'm definitely not on the safety first approach, like, oh, if you're good enough, get in there and show it. But I just think that step is maybe 1.5 steps above where Zepeda is at this point. So I don't know if that is the next building block, and I don't know if they would even take that fight next. But if they did, credit to them. And again, I'd be in total support of it. Also, after the bell, he called out Adam Azim, said, look, where you at, let's do this. Like, you're my mandatory, I'm your mandatory, let's go. The mandatory was called on both sides, ordered by the EBU and the British Boxing Association for the British title. And quite frankly, I said on Twitter X yesterday, and I maintain, if Adam Azim's team don't take the fight, then they're basically announcing to the world that they are not prepared to take difficult or 50-50 fights, which therefore calls into question whether or not it's worth buying a ticket to one of their events. Some people came back at me saying they disagree or whatever. Now, here's what I'm going to say about that. And some people chose to say, oh, well, if it was Matchroom, you'd think different. No, not really, because I've said the same thing there before. But the difference is, you can see Matchroom are challenging their prospects on their younger fighters, some of their marquee fighters, tough. They're matching them quite tough. And then I even used, Cameron Vong and Jordan Flynn as a prime example. Now, yes, Flynn's from the weight division below, but he's 9-0 versus Cameron Vong, who's 3-0, 4-0 at this point. That's a legit, it's a 50-50-ish type fight, or 60-40. It's not a whitewash in any way or on either side. So, and at the end of the day, they were saying, oh, well, yeah, but when it was Conor Benn and David Avanesian, people were saying, well, why is Avanesian targeting Conor Benn? The difference with that one is that David Avanesian wasn't Conor Benn's rival. It was actually Josh Kelly, and that's who Conor Benn was calling out, and that's who he wanted to fight. And then when it came to the British, I can't remember who the guy was that had the British, but I know he was a Queensbury fighter, and Queensbury didn't want to let him take the fight on Matchroom, I think it was, or he vacated the title or something like that, or I can't remember how it happened. I don't think Conor wasn't the mandatory, but I think they just blocked the Conor Benn fight, and then he ended up fighting someone else for like a lot less money and losing the belt. But I can't remember the name of the guy. If you guys know it in the chat, put that down there for me. But yeah, the difference, so the Conor Benn thing was totally different to this one. And even if you want to use Conor Benn as an example of, the star that they was kind of protecting or whatever, Eddie Hearn came out quite early and said, we're not interested in the David Avanesian fight for Conor Benn. He's a very dangerous fighter. He's a very good fighter, but he has no profile. He doesn't really bring anything to the table for us for where we're trying to get to or where we're trying to go. Now, whether that's cap or not, he came out early and said it early and for multiple times. And Conor Benn wasn't a champion. He would have been a challenger to that belt, and they chose not to take that challenge. This is a totally different situation because Adam Azim is the European champion. He's the guy who they've said they are fast-tracking to the world stage, that they believe he can be one of the youngest world champions in modern history. Well, if that's the case, his mandatory is right there, and his mandatory's also got a belt for him to fight for. So it's not just like, oh, well, you just got to defend your belt. No, you've got a chance to win 2 belts on top of the belt that you're defending. What's the problem? If it's about the age and the experience, then just come out, like Eddie Hearn said, come out and say, we're not doing that fight next. It's not of interest right now. Like, this is a fight we're happy to look at maybe in a year or two's time, when both guys are on the world stage, or both guys are legit world top 10 or top 3 in the division or something like that. If they came out and said that from early, no problem. Which is exactly the reason why I haven't got a problem with the whole Conor Benn and David Avanesian thing, because they said early, this is not the route we want to go, and they were under no obligations to take that fight because Conor Benn had no belts. He wasn't, Avanesian wasn't his mandatory. He didn't have to vacate anything for him. So when people want to use that as an excuse, or use that as a, oh, but what aboutism? No, it doesn't work. It's a totally different scenario. So, as they would say in America, you played yourself. That being said, I'm pretty much going to leave that one there. I know for a fact that Azim's team ain't going to take the fight. And I saw an interview with Sam Jones a little earlier on. I think it was on Seconds Out, where he basically said, look, they've just made the whole thing a lot worse. They should have wrote to the board, the EBU or the British board early, and said, yeah, sorry, we're not looking at that fight right now. We've got another plan. We're happy to do it in a year or two, and just sort of be done with it. But now that they've let everything go so far, and no one's talking for Adam, and Adam is now having to basically put out tweets on his own with no help or no backing from his team and his promotion to talk about the fight. And it's just making him look soft. And it's like, well, if you don't take the fight now, it calls your credibility into question and your legitimacy as a champion, and then it almost maybe exposes you as quote unquote a paper champion that won a belt from a very low hanging fruit. And then when it comes time to defend it against a legit contender and win some belts of your own in the process, belts that you've never held, now you're going to vacate and go elsewhere. And that also then puts a lot of pressure on who his next opponent's going to be, because you can't go from turning down a Dalton Smith fight and then fighting someone the level of a Enoch Paulson or Frank Petitjean again. So yeah, there's a lot of issues there. But I guess we'll wait and see. Let the chips fall where they may. What I would like to see, quite frankly, if Adam Azim and the team do vacate that EBU title, I wonder how high up in the rankings Pierce O'Leary is. Because obviously we was talking about that as a 5v5 potential fight before. Well, if Pierce O'Leary is anywhere in those, maybe he could get sanctioned to fight for the vacant EBU title. Maybe Dalton Smith will take that, because Eddie Hearn said, unless it was Adam Azim, they wouldn't really go for the European, because it would be like a lesser known opponent, or a name that no one's heard of. But I actually think if you get a Pierce O'Leary, that makes it worth it. And to be honest, I think they should go for the belt anyway, just to say that they got it. I always believe that you should just collect and rack and sort of stack the belts, just to say, yeah, I want everything there is to win on my journey to world level. But I can understand if that's not the way that they would go, overall. But yeah, look, to me, I feel that would be a smart move, and maybe they could get, if he's high up enough in the rankings. I think he's on BoxRec, I think he's like number 12 in Europe or something. So he could be fairly high in those rankings. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work personally. And then yeah, that would be a reason to go after that belt. It will still be a fairly big fight domestically up until such point as you then do maybe look to step to a Regis Prograis or a Richardson Hitchens, or maybe a Ryan Garcia type, or a Montana Love, and sort of Liam Paro, those type of people. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Pierce O'Leary is actually looking now, he's actually 7th on BoxRec in Europe. So yeah, to me that would make perfect sense. Dalton Smith versus Pierce O'Leary for the vacant European title if Adam Azim vacates. So yeah, if you see that fight happen, just know it where it came from, and I want my matchmaker's fee, please, because I'm owed a couple of those at this point. But yeah, also, I don't know the result because it's not showing on box rec yet, but I know that Michael Hunter fought last night, or this morning in Mexico against what's in it, Ignacio Esparza. Never heard of the guy, but apparently he called him out from his very last fight last year. So I'm keen to see sort of what happened with that fight. As soon as that gets uploaded, I can have a look at it. But yeah, I will leave it there. That's pretty much the weekend wrapped up and my thoughts on it. Leave yours down below. Let me know what you think. If you think I'm chatting shit, cool. If you agree, you know, cool as well. It is what it is. But thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to watch the boxing debate, which if you haven't seen it by now, it should be on the channel to upload. It should be on the channel before this comes out, so you should see it there with myself, October Red, Danny from Fight Fan TV, and Maestro A Boxing. But yeah, I will catch you on the content for next week. So until then, thank you. Peace.